Good morning, everyone. Just making sure that you can hear me well. Welcome to the first session, the introductory meeting to the Water Conservation Plan Committee. We appreciate all of you making some time to attend here. We all know that you have busy agendas, work commitments, personal commitments, so we appreciate your time. Thank you for that. So for today's meeting, we have an objective for all of you, which is to have shared understanding of the structure of the Water Conservation Plan, all right? We will be also sharing the key project deliverables and timeline. So those are the three main items that we want to accomplish by the end of the meeting. And having said that, we have some information to give to all of you. So the first thing to go next is the agenda, all right? So we will begin with some general information. We will get to that briefly. Then we will do a round of introductions. We want to meet you all. What is your background? What do you want to get out of this meeting? Okay. Then we will jump to roles and responsibilities. There are some clear roles that we have established, and we want to have some clarity around that. Then we will move on with Esteban to review the plan overview, then discuss deliverables and timeline. We will have a space at the end to open up a round of conversation and discussion. So just that you know that there will be some time for that. And while Esteban gets to the content of the project overview, we will have some natural breakpoints around every 10 minutes to open up again the conversation and receive your questions. So what we will ask you is to take notes of all questions you might have and wait until we open up that round of commentation. So I will pass it over to you, Esteban, if you'd like to have a few words.
Thank you, Jose. Just do some administrative, kind of clerical. We are on the 6th floor. If you need to go to the bathroom, they're across the hall. Elevators down and out. We have 2 exits in case of a fire. There's stairwells we can go down. Again, I personally would like to thank y'all for participating in this meeting. The Water Conservation Plan is very important to the city. It's very important to kind of a master plan, per se, direction of where we want the community and the entities who live here in this community to think about water conservation, think about how they can present themselves, how the city can then manage and move forward in the realm of water conservation and management. So the goals, like Jose stated, I'll give an overview of the current water conservation plan. And I think we passed out, and you should have a hard copy with you. And it's kind of it looks kind of a 200 and something page document. And it's like, oh, it's a lot, it's big. It's a lot of good information. And a lot of good information goes into this in the appendices, and we'll cover that as we meet and discuss. And I kind of want to make sure that this is a conversational committee. I want to be able to hear ideas, hear comments, hear questions from the committee, and so that then my team can go back and then try to build a better document. This is a living, breathing document that's regulatory required for the state of Texas and the city of Corpus Christi and our wholesale users. And so this is a good opportunity to hear more input into how we look at it and how we can edit or add to some of the chapters or sections of the WCP, the Water Conservation Plan. So with that, I just want to again thank you for being here. Thank you for participating in this endeavor, and I can't wait to hear the good ideas that will come from this group.
Thank you, Esteban. To complement general information with all of you have a microphone. There are some instructions on how to use it. So there are 2 buttons in the front. You would press the button on the right, then you would see that the green light will pop up. Once it is green, you will be able to speak. So let's make sure that there is a green light so that everyone can hear you. Also, this meeting is being streamed in social media, so we are using this microphone so that audio can go out. Make sure to not pick up the microphone over here, because if you do so, it might disconnect and the audio won't be picking up again. All right? Just like that. Thanks. We have a document in the entrance where we need all of you to sign up. So if you haven't done so, we would appreciate if you can do that later. It doesn't have to be now. Okay? So having said that, we can move to the next item on the agenda, which is the round of introductions. So if you don't mind, what we will ask you is to provide your name, your affiliation, and third, and let's be effective with the use of time, we are interested to know what do you expect to get out of this committee, all right? And what we can do for logistics, we can begin in that other corner with Moses, if you don't mind, and we can go this direction and end with Karen.
I'm going to listen to others to figure out what to say. All right, Moses Mastagasi. I'm with Coastal Bend Lots, local land developer, retired home builder. Our focus is obviously land development, growth in our city, organized growth, but really what we're trying to get out of this and what we've heard, as far as conservation, the building community for a long time has been a pain in his butt, trying to get water permits to water grass. So what we've done with homeowners is push that back or looked at different landscaping options to conserve water and different things with obviously toilets, shower heads throughout the years with technology and just state law, national law. But really, what is the conservation for the general public? Obviously, what is the conservation for our surrounding counties? What's the conservation plan for our large volume users? And really, what does everybody need to do to stay out of curtailment? I mean, that's, I think, really what we're here for. So.
Gail Anderson. I'm part of a Water for Life group. We've been studying this for a couple of years. My background is in engineering and was hoping that we wouldn't sit here and go. I realize y'all put a lot of work into this and appreciate this. I've already been studying this, so I was hoping that we would have more input on what we were going to do today than be fed just this pre-prepared stuff, that we would have more input on the agenda.
Hi, my name is Andy Taubman. I have a natural sciences and economic background. I was an investment banker in New York for many years, where I did a lot of project finance. I own apartment buildings here in town. I've been involved with a lot of different committees for the city, including chairing some of those committees. And I'm here really mainly concerned about curtailment and how the steps we go through lead to curtailment, what the implications are for that economically, politically, socially, and everything else. So, thank you.
My name is Laura Commons. I'm a local realtor. I've been a local realtor here for about 25 years. I'm also running for City Council District 2 this year. And I guess, I also have chaired quite a few committees for the city, the Landmark Commission and the Human Relations Commission. I just came off the Ethics Commission recently. So I have a huge interest in this city and making sure that it has a bright future. I also would like to see that we keep ourselves out of curtailment. For me personally, I think it has to do with the more that our water situation stays in the news, it actually affects our growth, and it actually affects my business directly because we have less buyers coming to Corpus Christi. So that's really important to me, and I'm sure it's important to Moses too, for sure. But it also affects property values. So it's just kind of a trickle down effect for me. So so those are my interests.
I'm Michael Miller. I am the Vice President of Teal Construction Company, a local commercial general contractor. I've served on the Planning Commission for about 7 years, I think. So my interest in this particular committee is making sure that the things that we incorporate into this plan are fair across all rate classes, right? And I'm sure Laura would agree with me as a realtor, when I can't water my yard and all my landscaping dies, it affects a significant portion of the value of the greatest investment that I'll ever make, right? Or that many of us here in the city ever makes, which is their home. And when my industrial friends across the ship channel don't water their grass, doesn't really do anything to their operation. So making sure that, because by state law, whenever these draconian type restrictions come into play, everybody has to suffer equally. And so making sure that everybody actually is suffering equally is going to be one of my goals for this exercise.
Hi, Jace Tunnel. I'm with the Hart Research Institute at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, and been involved with water conservation issues for about 20 years. Used to work for the Coastal Bend Basin Estuary Program, actually, about 20 years ago, but dealt with a lot of water issues. And so kind of I have a marine science background, and so my concern is both looking at water conservation for people and ensuring good environmental flows as well. Thanks.
My name is John Hanslick. I'm the owner of JH Industrial, a local welding and fabrication company that services local industry in the area. Born and raised in Corpus Christi, I'm passionate about the city. I want to make sure that it continues to thrive and grow. And I'd also like to make sure that the citizens have the water they need for essential, day-to-day life, as well as our industry partners have the water they need.
Hi, my name is George Finley. I'm probably the oldest guy in the room today. I'm honored to be here. Many, many years ago, I was involved with the Nueces River Authority back when we did Choke Canyon, then the Mary Rhodes Pipeline. I spent about 25 years on that august body. Very concerned about where we are today. It's just the old Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again. It's amazing how poorly we have planned for where we are today. And so if there's anything I can do to lend with lots of years of experience in the past, however, I must say the past was not as bad as it is today at this meeting. So, I mean, we have a huge obligation to get water for this area. So I'm here to help in any way I possibly can. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Jake Hernandez, and I'm probably the youngest person here on this board. And this is my first board or commission, so I apologize that I'm a little green, but we all got to start somewhere, right? I am one of the lead organizers at Texas Campaign for the Environment on the Water for People campaign. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Corpus Christi chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America, and the reason that I'm here is to ensure that curtailment is being enforced very fairly across our largest volume water users, and make sure that residential classes do not suffer from any sort of restrictions that are put on curtailment measures. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mallory Lightsey with San Patricio Municipal Water District, and I'm here because mainly whatever changes are made will update our respective plan to mimic that, so just to be involved. So thanks for including us.
My name is Jesse Jenkins. I own Gill Garden Center and Landscape Company. And water is a central part of my life. Lack of water is a big part of my life in the past few years. So I'm here to offer as much support as I can especially around the, the landscaping rules and standards. And hopefully, I'd like to see a lot more incentives from the city when it comes to landscaping properly. And yeah, I'd like to help with that. Thank you.
My name is Michael Womack. I'm the Executive Director and Horticulturist for South Texas Botanical Gardens and Nature Center. I'm a former extension agent here in Corpus Christi for horticulture for 10 years before I started at the Botanical Gardens full-time. Also served as the chair of Visit Corpus Christi, so I understand the tourism side, I understand the scientific horticulture side, trying to provide good research-based information as we're making these decisions on what's happening, so that everyone comes out as a winner. That's really what we need to do. But sometimes we put things in that don't make sense biologically or horticulturally, and so I want to kind of help, bridge that so that we're making smart language that we're putting into this plan in the future.
I'm Brett Van Hazel. I'm with the City of Corpus Christi. I'm the Director of Water Supply Management. I'm assisting this group with this committee as well as the Farfield Committee. So just listening in today. Thank you.
I'm Christine Westerman. I'm with SWCA Environmental Consultants, and we are assisting the City of Corpus Christi as the facilitation team for these meetings. My background is primarily in regulatory compliance for transportation and utility projects and natural resources studies and water planning.
I am Jose Rodriguez. I am your lead facilitator, and I will have the objective to make good use of your time in these 2 hours. I am here partnering with SWCA for the facilitation services. Thank you.
Good morning, Nick Winkleman. I'm the Interim Chief Operating Officer of Corpus Christi Water. I appreciate all of you being here. Water is important to all of us, and we all care about water, so that's our common thread. My main purpose to be here is to listen, and Gail, you hit it on the head, right? We want to hear from all of you, from this group. And I take a lot of notes inherently, and I will continue to do that. So my goal is to listen and to answer any technical questions. So thank you.
Hello again. My name is Esteban Ramos, or you can call me Steve. I am the Water Resource Manager for Corpus Christi Water. My background goes back almost 23 years in water resources from the state, working with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, actually doing the regulation on drought contingency plans, water conservation plans, helping communities throughout the state of Texas with their water supply needs and water supply development through different projects, surface water, groundwater. I've also been I was honored to be chosen as the South Texas and Concho Water Master in 2011, working with communities in West Texas and 50 counties in South Texas through the drought of record, making sure that they were working within their regulatory documents and talking to communities, talking about planning, talking about implementing, and actually talking about communities that it's too late to plan when you're in a drought. And not the issue is no one pays attention to water unless there's a drought, because it costs money and it costs a lot of time. And when when the lakes are full, rivers are full, no one really wants to talk about it because it has impacts that no one really wants to see and directs the resources to others. And I found that I've talked to communities across the state of Texas on that, and actually in Canada and actually had an opportunity to speak at the Natural Resources Committee at the House on this very item. So I come back to the city of Corpus Christi, to this area. I'm originally from Kingsville. My family has been here since the early 1700s in this area. My family goes back to the Caneños, one of the five families that came with Captain King and ranched and developed the community, then also on the Kennedy Ranch. I have grandparents that are buried there on it. So when I talk about water, when I talk about what this community, this region, it's part of who we are and where we have come from and where we need to go. And this document that we'll be discussing and hearing, and a lot of good conversation. And I really want to have this open dialogue through these meetings. And today is just really a kickoff meeting. That's how I looked at it. That's how I kind of worked with the group to structure an overview so that we could set the table. My mom and dad were both teachers, and it's important to kind of set the table so that we have good conversation and building around it. Doesn't necessarily mean, it means that we just have a framework and we can build from that framework outwards. And so I thank y'all again for being here, and that's just a little about myself.
Good morning. My name is Karen Costanzo, and I'm with the City of Corpus Christi's Planning Division. I'm here supporting the committee, bringing decades of experience managing long-range plans that include advisory committees, these types of committee settings, as well as broader public engagement and communication. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I think that we missed one committee member, so if you could help us with, click on the right button. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Good morning, everybody. I'm Bob Paulison. I'm the Executive Director of the Coastal Bend Industry Association. Thanks for the opportunity to serve, and I'm here to help do my part to get us to craft a great water conservation plan. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Thank you all for your comments. By the way, we are taking notes of all of your concerns, your interest, and we will take that into account in the following meetings for sure. So let's move to the next item of the agenda. Having gone through the introductions, we do have some ground rules to follow throughout all of the conversations, and we call them the rules of engagement. This is nothing different for what you might have already seen in other committees, but we will do just a quick introduction to this. We want shared understanding. Chances are that we might fall into some technicalities or technical concepts that because of the diverse background this group has, some members could not follow all of the ideas. So let's make sure that if you are falling into some commentary that is technical, that everyone is understanding. And in the other case that you are following that conversation and you are not understanding, please just raise your hand so that we can ask for clarification. You can do that at any time, okay? Next point is that we want to stay focused on topic. Again, we want to be respectful of your time. We have planned an agenda for you with objectives. So let's try to follow the times. And if you'd like to have an additional conversation, we can always meet at the end and make adjustments and just listen to the comments you might have. Next, we want a respectful environment, and we are sure we will have that. So let's respect all perspectives. Again, we have a diverse group which will be enriching the conversations. Let's have just one conversation at a time. If there is some noise in the background, that might distract the people that is listening and the presenters. And last but not least, let's engage constructively. We need your thoughts. We need your feedback. We will make collection of that. So let's do that constructively. Next, we do have.
Is it appropriate to make a motion?
Let's do that. If you all agree with.
I'd like to make a motion that we save at least 20 minutes at the end to set the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that.
So I'd like to better understand the motion.
Yeah, sorry,
Could you
sorry
expand
about
a little
that.
bit?
So rather than have the agenda given to us, so I understand that this is important to set the groundwork for what we're getting ready to do, but rather than the city driving what we're going to do, we'd like to have input on future meetings.
If I could comment, this is your committee,
Good.
right? Everyone,
I was
this is
hoping
your
so.
committee. So I absolutely agree. I mean, at the end of each meeting, I think the motion is to just reserve some time to set the agenda for the next meeting.
Future business type stuff.
Yeah,
It is.
exactly.
It was kind of already structured that way. We were thinking that this initial meeting, I wanted to have a structure. So we, so bear with me on that
No,
one. And
this is
perfect.
perfect.
I'll take the blame on that. Kind of already having an agenda already set up for discussion. But as we move into these next meetings, as we go through this, that's exactly right. This is a committee to discuss what needs to go into the water conservation plan and what a water conservation plan means and under that framework. So yes, 100%.
And I'd only like to slightly amend the motion to say, we really know much of what's in this, so my suggestion is we just roll through these slides pretty fast so that we can have the time at the end.
I'll second that amendment, Andy.
Well, can I chime in? Because I don't want to, and look, I know this isn't necessarily my committee to run, but I do want to keep in mind that though you may be very well versed in this, there may be others that are not. So I think it may be worth taking a little bit of time to just kind of talk through it.
Sure.
I don't think it's going to be as detailed as maybe you think it's not. We have an abbreviated presentation for today. It's not everything you see in front of you. And the goal is to just set the framework for the discussion and then really just introduce everybody to this, talk about expectations, kind of give you the commitment requirements for this committee going forward. And then I imagine at the end, where we get into the additional discussion, we can really start diving in to the details. And then your future meetings will be very prescriptive based on your input. And then you'll really start having really good, productive conversation on the entire plan. But I would just say, be mindful, there may be others that are not up to speed as you. And let's just make sure that everybody's able to get up to speed, and then we're all working on the same playing field. So just a recommendation. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. So we will make sure to reserve some time at the end so that we can discuss. Okay. Okay.
With the amendment, I mean, we need to vote on the amendment first and then. No,
I don't know if we need to vote, but I think we understand, I think everybody understands what's going on.
So now it's just the committee. Oh, sorry. So we're just voting on reserving a time at the end for the agenda because the other part has been understood on the.
I don't think we need to, from my perspective, we don't need to Robert's Rules of Order this thing to death.
Well,
I don't
I'm
even
just
think we need to
double-checking.
vote. I just think there's an understanding that of where people are in these things, and
I just want to know what we were voting on. That's all I was asking.
no, I'm ready to move on with this meeting.
Okay. Okay. We will be respectful of your time. If I don't see that there is an objection to have that flexibility of incorporating that time at the end. So if following on that idea, we will make that adjustment and there is no voting required. Okay. We will do this quickly. So there are some responsibilities. So for the advisory committee, we want to collect your feedback. So for that, you have on your hands a draft of the updated water conservation plan. So you are tasked to review and provide that feedback, offer insights and perspectives based on your professional expertise. So we are looking into that diversity of opinions and comments and support transparent communication. There are some expectations as well for the advisory committee. Number one, we'd like you to attend to all meetings with no proxy attendance. We understand that you might have urgencies, and that is totally understandable, but let's make the effort so that we can be in person to make these the most productive as possible. There will be materials delivered in advance, so we are counting on you to review those in advance. Again, trying to make effective use of your time. Let's respect the diverse viewpoints that is included in the ground rules and provide constructive input. There are some responsibilities as well for the city staff, beginning with providing an overview of the water conservation plan. We will begin that bullet this same meeting. They will prepare and present the draft water conservation plan materials for you to review, coordinate the meetings and distribute all of the materials required, and to incorporate feedback as appropriate. Esteban, would you like to complement any of these bullets that we have shared?
Again, I know I'll sound like a broken record because repetitive is good in education to hear it over and over again. This is your committee to get feedback on those particular items within a water conservation plan. Within a water conservation plan that is within our rules, not just the city of Corpus Christi, but with the state of Texas under 288, our water code, that this document fits in. And what is prudent under the water conservation plan, what the water conservation plan is really intended to do. So these are some of the good responsibilities of the committee to have really good conversations around those points.
Thank you. Christine and I do have some responsibilities as well to make these meetings goal-focused and productive to ensure balanced participation. So we want to hear from all of you, right? And we will report back on the process we have followed, okay? Just to make sure that everything, again, is properly documented. Having said that, we can now move next to the meat of the meeting with Stevan to the overview of the water conservation plan. So I'm going to hand you the clicker, Stevan.
As it exists, and we are required to go through every 5 years to do updates to a water conservation plan. What that can mean from a regulatory perspective is entities could just say, yes, the document is updated and approved, we're good to go. Or there could be additional changes, updates that the organization wishes to make. So in looking at this committee and working with others, I wanted to start off by just kind of setting the stage, like I've said, and describing really the overview and the structure of a water conservation plan. And why is that important? Because under 288, there is already a structure that needs to be held to, or framework for the actual document. So there are things that the plan has to talk about. It has to have an introduction. It has to talk about your supply profile. There will be chapters on the water demand profile. You have to present that, and you have to come up with goals to achieve. Our goals are targets, and I'll emphasize this through our discussions, goals and targets you set within a water conservation plan. And then how do you achieve those targets? That's where we'll get into the discussion of water conservation practices. What do you do to try to achieve those targets and goals that you've set? The city of Corpus Christi has wholesale customers. They, as Sanpat Mallory just stated earlier, will be using this document as their guidance document to create their own water conservation plans. Each of the wholesale users then go back and add or update based upon suggestions, and this is a guidance document for them to develop against or used in their construction of their water conservation plans. And then as a kind of opening discussions, a lot of the great information in a water conservation plan comes from the appendices that is attached. So this is it's kind of an overwhelming document. People look at it and it's like 200 pages, but a lot of it is a lot of the appendices that goes into it that adds to your understanding and communication of how and why you have a water conservation plan and how it exists. So what is a water conservation plan? A water conservation plan, again, is a guidance document the city uses. It sets out the goals, and these goals are set out as a framework for to be achievable. Again, to be achievable. We need to think about that and how we assist different customer classes to achieve these goals that we will be discussing and setting within the water conservation plan. And then how do we measure success? How do we want to measure using different technologies, meters, and such? And that is also a requirement in a water conservation plan, that you set out how you're going to record your information. You know, the city of Corpus Christi has a lot of commercial meters, has a lot, every household, you have a meter outside your house monitoring your intake, your consumption use. And in a water conservation plan, there's a chapter or a section that describes programs that the utility uses to make sure that those meters are up to date. Those meters are being checked. They are within plus or minus 5% of accuracy. So those are some of the concepts that the WCP, the Water Conservation Plan, discusses and talks about. The structure of the Water Conservation Plan, like any guidance document from the state of Texas, again, is very prescriptive. It lays out the order which the document will be created in. And then in this presentation, I just want to kind of touch on, we'll be hitting as the conversation moves on, what goes into an introduction. How do we want to present to the world what water conservation means to the citizens of Corpus Christi and the region? So that's what we'll be discussing in and providing comments on the introduction. And then we'll talk about the profile, the water supply profile. And our profile is kind of dictated by our sources of water. Where do we get our water? How does that water move from the source down to our Owen Stevens water treatment plant? Yes, ma'am. Or, I thought you had a question. And please stop me if you have any, again, like I said earlier, any questions. Again, this is our committee to have a good conversation together about any of these chapters or sections within the plan. So we'll go through each of these and set out one of the points that you'll hear me talk about, and a lot of good conversation is going to be around the goals. Where do you think goals from need to be set at? Do we want to look at a 1% conservation target? Do we want to look at somewhere in that? Typically, other cities use from 1 to 10% in a targeted conservation goal over the 10 years. So these are things that we'll have as we move through these meetings. I see us having really good conversations about the goals that this plan will set out. And then, as always, when you set out a goal, you have to try to achieve those goals, right? And so what kind of conservation practices will we put in place? What programs, what education do you need to put out so that you can achieve these goals, so that you have community, have the customer classes, as we'll discuss, try to obtain these goals that this committee will help to set out. And then those conversations with our wholesale water customers and their conservation, and us reaching out to them. So the structure is set up like that, kind of leading towards a good water conservation regime. So introductions, again, we'll hit on these, what the departments can do, what the purpose of the plan, the public involvement. You'll see that in the introduction of a water conservation plan, and the organization of the WCP. So the purpose of the plan, this is kind of the meats and bones of it. This is a guidance document. This is a long-term planning document used by residents, utilities, businesses, our partners throughout the region, to guide them in thinking about how they can meet targets that they set and targets that the plan sets for themselves And so this is the purpose of a water conservation plan, to think about how this document is really a document that will live in the good times when there's plentiful water, rivers are full, lakes are full, everything's perfect. You would want everybody to be watering their grass, building 100 swimming pools at every single house, going everywhere. But this document lives in that time, and then this document lives in the times where the supply is low. The supply is at not just as the chart goes down from a low to a critical point. So this is a document that is always surrounding us on things and activities that we should be thinking about, and that could be leading from that different parts or departments of kind of from the city touches, from our home builders and the requirements in the plumbing and metering and actions like that, to what CCW does on monitoring with making sure leak protection, leak awareness, kind of from the infrastructure side, so we can bring down those numbers. So those are some of the things that, as you go through at home and you read through the WCP, you'll see that conversation in this document. And then that surrounds the goals that we as a committee will set for the benefit of water conservation for this entire region, and this 5 and 10 year quantifiable goals that I've been talking about. And then doing that, setting out the schedule for trying to implement said goals. And we can get, as the committee discusses and gets further into it, gets into the water and planning and the discussion around conservation goals and objectives. That's where the good conversation, good input into making sure that we have, we can strengthen our conservation measures that the city has. We can talk about the enforceability from a conservation perspective, how to keep those targets and goals in people's minds, and if they were to stray, those could be some suggestions that the city council then could take to create an ordinance based on those recommendations. So that's kind of where this particular document is not per se a city regulatory document. This is a document that is there to set a master plan, and then there are ordinances that are based, that could be picked to help keep your goals in line. So keep that in mind.
Esteban, could you provide to the committee those actual ordinances with the measures for stage 2, stage 3, what we know now for a level 1 water emergency?
So I was hearing some of the comments, and I want to kind of set the road straight. What you're all referring to in that kind of situation is the drought contingency plan. We're here, this committee is the water conservation plan. So that, what you're looking for isn't in the water conservation plan ordinances or goals. We do have ordinances such as restaurants. If you ever go to a restaurant shouldn't just leave a water on your table without you asking for it. So that's one concept that, from a water conservation perspective, that there's ordinance around there. It not necessarily, you could add conservation ordinances if the committee wishes to suggest that to council.
I think that would be more meaningful, because if this is just a committee to provide suggestions to the community on how they can individually conserve, I think that's great. But in order for this to be a meaningful committee that provides policy direction to our city council, I think we need to be looking at those into the weeds on the actual contingency plans.
Yeah, I hear you, Michael. So the drought contingency plan is available, is online. was recently approved by council, and everyone should be absolutely familiar with that. I do want to emphasize the goal of this committee is to update the water conservation plan, and we should stick to that goal, otherwise we're not going to do a good job of that.
But so just so that I understand, because I don't, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the conservation plan, is this just a set of recommendations, or is this is there anything binding within this document, or is it just used as a tool to reference whenever looking at contingency plans? Or like, what, is this just checking a box for the PUC, or what are we doing here?
Well, none of it's checking a box. It's doing the best we can to prepare the best document we can. And I thought Esteban did a really good job of explaining it. And when you look at binding circumstances, it's city ordinances. So out of this committee and out of this conservation plan, I don't know, but potentially there's some recommendations for city ordinances. But the plan itself is extremely critical. We take it seriously, otherwise we wouldn't be embarking down this path.
But what do you use it for once it's done, once it's updated?
The conservation plan is a document that is submitted to TCEQ. That's important. But then the goal is for it to be utilized through the entire community and all of our customers. That's why Mallory's here.
I'd like to
use that as guiding principles.
I'd like to reframe what I think Michael's asking. I think from our perspective, at least why I'm here, is I'm concerned with any conservation aspects that affect the near term between now and November as an effort to avoid curtailment. And I'm getting the vibe that this plan has a 5 or 10 year aspect to it, so that it's very important. Nobody's looking to denigrate the plan, but to the extent that it's really valuable to the community, that it address with some element of enforcement associated with it, activities that the city should undertake or that water users should undertake that materially moves the needle as we head toward November, is of paramount importance because it has a real impact on life, as opposed to sort of a dead letter plan that goes in a drawer and is aspirational.
So those are great comments, and that is the drought contingency plan and the restrictions and curtailments that are set out in the drought contingency plan that set the road for either I call it buying more time before resources rain comes, so that curtailments, you can slow the demand down. The word conserve, but that is not in the sense of this particular document. So you're talking conserve within an emergency situation, and I look at it in the drought contingency plan is the guiding document in a emergency situation as it gets critical down. And those are discussions and suggestions for that document, and keeping that document and people to the letter of that document. This water conservation plan, like open, is a document that lives all the time, whether it's good, lakes are completely full, or they're in a drought situation, of what the community can do to try to lower the demand, even in good times. Make sure that we're using the best technology, the best education out there to inform our public and our customers of how we utilize the water, how to make their homes, make their cars, make their industries, make their businesses efficient. And that efficiency in the use of water is at the frontmost, front of their mind. So that when they're adding new technology or trying to change direction, that they're keeping an eye on that. And then you asked a little earlier where in what measures there are. There are measures in your presentation. I added put a page on that. It's not, for time, we kind of modified the presentation that you'll see on the screen, but I wanted to include it because it is a framework that can be utilized in the water conservation sense.
Are you worried the plan has no teeth? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm trying to do is figure out what we're doing and who we are doing it for, right? Is our audience just primarily residential people? Because I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, my dad, the city had a fantastic, ad communication deal on TV ads and stuff about conservation. My dad was going around to all the toilets and putting 20-ounce bottles full of water inside the tank and, reminding me that, you only have 5 minutes to shower and lots of things like that, right? And that stuff is all good. It's all very important. In this document, I've had a chance to read through this document. There is a copy of the agreed order. And I think that was very useful to include in this. And I have some questions about that we'll get to, in subsequent meetings. But I want to make sure that if the customer is, or if the consumer of this document that we are amending and creating this for is also our industrial partners and stuff like that, then I'm a little concerned because, we've got Bob here, but we probably should have had some folks that are a little bit more into the technical side of the industry that, and Bob, you may be able to do this, but be able to communicate what measures that, our industrial partners can contribute to this document and how they can make recommendations to their industry partners on conservation.
I thought it was everybody. I thought it was industrial, agricultural, and residents. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
This document is a guidance document for all those customer classes that you just described, and how we can achieve setting the goals, and then how we can, our targets, and then how we can set programs to assist those customer classes to achieve those targets.
Okay, so I have a quick question, just to make sure I'm keeping up. Didn't you just say a little while ago that some of our suggestions could be passed as an ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay.
In the 2020 plan, there is goals for industry as well.
Right.
And I'm assuming with this updated plan, we can come up with goals for them as well. And I do know for a fact they are trying to reduce their use.
I
The last thing wanna do
agree
is
with
be-
that.
So I do have two quick comments. And I'm sorry if they're out of order a little bit, but first, the other thing why this plan is important, it does help with our overall scoring when we try and get funding from the state, from the Texas Water Development Board. So that's a key component for both grant and low interest loan funding. And why is that important? Because that directly affects all of our ratepayers, right? And then the other thing is, it's our intention that all of you all represent a certain number of people. It's our intention that you share this information with those you represent and get feedback. I don't want to speak for Mr. Paulison, but I'm sure if there's technical questions, he'll get feedback and then bring it back to the committee.
Can I speak about something that I think you mentioned earlier, Stefan? You were talking about, what is our goal? What do we want to, what is successful? What would be a success for us as a committee? And for me personally, and I would hope for everybody, I think a success would be, that we come up with a conservation plan that, that does not scare the citizens of Corpus Christi away, but it also does not scare industry away. Like, that has got to be what everybody would suggest is a success for all of us. We don't want anybody to go away. You know, I mean, I'm on the front line in reference to real estate, and I know how important growth is to Corpus Christi. We certainly don't want to get smaller, you know?
We are already.
Well, and we don't want to, yeah.
So, if you don't mind, what I'm hearing over here is that I think there were some different expectations coming into this meeting, that some people thought we were really looking at the drought contingency plan versus the water conservation plan. And the drought contingency plan falls within the broader fencing or guidelines that we put in the drought contingency plan, but it's very much more specific, and it has to follow the general guidelines of this. This is a 5-10-year plan out. But it seemed like there were quite a few people here that thought we were really talking about the drought contingency plan. So just trying to clarify that. Is that what I'm hearing from everyone too?
Well, I guess, yes. Yes is the answer to your question. And I guess I would say, with all due respect, I think that the Water Conservation Plan is a document that lives in a drawer somewhere quite often, that I'm not sure that it's, other than for scoring purposes or for regulatory purposes, although I'm sure it does impact developmental services codes, I'm sure it does impact some element of industry. So I'm not saying it's irrelevant, right? But I think we would all agree that the burning down the house issue of the day is curtailment. And when I was told that I was going to be involved with some element of conservation, it certainly was with my expectation that it would be an active discussion of how we can avoid that, for which there are different aspects. There's the public relations aspect of people need to know that this is serious, and now it's time to pull out of the drawer something like this so that they can personally help every day in every shower to avoid curtailment. I think there is a bunch of people that are looking at that public relations aspect in the regulatory world to say, is this really an emergency? And if so, do we have to give emergency powers, authority to get something like this done? So I think that's an aspect of it. Conservation is one of those feel-good things that becomes most relevant when there's some element of enforcement associated with that, right? So I was hoping that we would address various elements of enforcement, which could include rate steps for people that use beyond an ordinary amount. I looked in the drought contingency plan, which I thought was a subset of this, frankly, so it was germane for the discussion. And there is a fee for avoidance that's associated with that, and I wanted to understand that some more. And then I think that there is a policy aspect that's involved with this. And from my perspective, having spoken with people on city council and represented those things, I thought we were going to talk about some of those policy issues. Then there was the mundane stuff like technology, right? The city has an enormous trove of data on every user every day through the meter system, right? Is there something technical we can do? In other cities where we've had leaks, I get a call from the city water department, hey, we looked at your meter, it looks like you got a leak, right? I was hoping that we were going to discuss things that perhaps the city could do in terms of transmission loss through their system, which may be relevant. So
I agree with that too.
There's a difference between a feel-good aspect, not to diminish it, that is a 5 to 10 year deliverable, than to what do we do to keep the house from burning down?
If I may, I think I have a question first to Esteban, and that, is it feasible or possible, allowed? And then to the committee, is it palatable, is it desirable? What if, the implementation plan identified urgent actions? So things that the committee deems very time critical as next steps to focus staff direction. And of course, all this goes to council, so council gives final direction on policy matters. But that would be my question, if that's allowed, and maybe that is palatable and addresses the concerns. I don't know what, again, I'm not the subject matter expert here.
So if I understand your question, yes and no. So the committee could suggest what the committee would love to, wants to suggest as a committee. As a regulatory document, that does not live within the WCP. That is your conversation regarding the drought contingency plan.
I guess.
But then you did make a great point on some of the leak protection and discussions of somebody calling you, the CCWCs. There is.
We're here,
that
let me be
program.
very clear, we're here to meet your needs, okay? I think this committee can probably soberly and efficiently look through this water conservation plan document, give you feedback in 2 rounds, and you'll have a perfectly acceptable document to meet your needs.
How many meetings do you have to, how many meetings do you have to host with a quorum to check the box?
So, yeah, I'll answer that. So it was at the request of council that we put this group together, and we fully support it. The update to the water conservation plan can be done in as few or as many meetings as all of you think are needed. Again, this is your group. I think the meeting frequency is up to all of you, and it can be done as quickly or as slowly as you want. Our goal is to bring an updated conservation plan to council in April.
We can do it by Tuesday.
And that would be great. Then we'll bring it to council ahead of that.
So look, I want to be very clear that that I personally, I can only speak for me, want to meet your needs to get this document to where it needs to be. That's very important for a variety of reasons. However, we've convened this group of very august people, and I think that the need is to address the elephant in the room, which is can we use the balance of our time in the meetings, which are very fulsome schedule, to explore what in our individual professional capacities should be conservation that is relevant to the near-term avoidance of the curtailment.
We should be the drought contingency committee.
But we can't do that because it's impaneled by the city council. But I want to tell you, I've read the ordinance, and I think the ordinance allows it if you sort of squint your eyes and read between the lines, which happens from
I
time
would
to
like
time.
to interject one thought, but it's extremely relevant. Conservation, there's long-term conservation, which you have a plan you're talking about. Then there's conservation that's confronting us today, the lack of water for the community. We have a massive northern effect coming into South Texas. For those of you who have not been around Corpus for a long period of time, I can assure you that one of the greatest water loss experiences we've had was when we had a huge freeze that came through in December many years ago, and we lost a huge amount of our water because many of our pipes are exposed under homes, and they tend to freeze and break. And I remember running after that freeze, and the streets were flooded with water. Now, that's a contingency that nobody's talking about. I mean, isn't that the city's responsibility to bring that?
Yes, sir. So there have been a number of news releases, and also I did an interview yesterday. I'm planning to do another interview today to get the word out. And just because this is fresh on my mind, yes, we are asking all homeowners to protect their piping at their house. Absolutely. That is extremely important. And there's recommendations and news releases out, and we were looking for everyone to do that.
I think on that note, sorry, Moses.
Yep.
I think on that note, on yours, I don't think that citizens think about it in reference to our drought. I think it's like, oh, you know, am I gonna do that? I don't typically do it. I've never done it for the last 2 freezes. But when you put it in that sense that you just did, if you don't cover your pipes, you know, there's gonna be a leak, and that's water that we need. That means more to me.
Yeah, all I can say is in the interview I gave to Chris Six yesterday, we talked explicitly about that.
So,
I plan to do the same thing with KIII this afternoon, yeah.
couple of things, real quick. It's 12:10, right? What I'm gonna recommend, and I appreciate everybody's comments, and I agree with, you know, probably half of this group thought we were doing the drought contingency plan over the water conservation plan. And I know both go hand in hand, but I would say let them finish this, and then we can decide as a group really what we want to see on the next agenda, if it's within the purview of this document. If it's not, then that might be a question where you need to go ask legal, can the other document be looked at some point? And then how do we schedule, if we're going to do 3 weeks, 1 month? If you want to be April, that's 2 meetings. I think everybody can probably read this, come back with red lines at the next meeting if it's in 3 weeks, and then talk about those, have a following meeting, get past this document. But I think you should just get through at least your presentation before we run out of time on this meeting, so. Because I got to go cover my pipes.
And to that point.
It's gonna get kind of cold here in a minute, so.
So to that point, that's why this committee needs to look at the education. When I say education, it's the outreach to do exactly what y'all are saying.
Well,
to promote in the good times when it was plentiful, but if your pipes break, if you're just gonna be wasting water, right? So what can this document set out as a guidance document for CCW to follow? That will be part of this document.
I think what half this group, because I've talked to some of them, is we're all thinking kind of the bigger picture. Like, I mean, I understand a pipe breaking or 1,000 pipes breaking or the mains breaking, right? If it's on the city side versus customer side, or turning off your faucet when you brush your teeth. But we're trying to look at the millions of gallons that we need a day, not the hundreds of gallons. I'm not being rude about it, but if you want to stay out of curtailment, we've got to find the hundreds of millions of gallons of water a day type thought process, right? So I think we get through this, at least for today, and then set a path forward. But on the flip side, I think everybody would have appreciated if we had just gotten this in some shape or form. I hope we didn't get it, and I'm just saying this now, but if we had gotten this before, we could have just read this part and kind of got through this so everybody can get to some of the detail. So.
Yeah, I mean, does everyone agree with Moses?
I agree with everything he said.
I think the discussion was that this committee would digest all of this information, come back next meeting with red lines, and really the goal is to get a good conservation plan document and go from there. And see what can evolve after that.
And I think that, look, we got 3 weeks. I think if people want to submit their red lines early and we can circulate them among each other, right? And then when we come back together, it can be very productive in terms of, hey, I saw something in that proposal over there, or I didn't like this, or here's what we really have to talk about. We can distill that down so that really the next meeting is resolving a lot of things, so that the meeting after that, we can say, wow, we really did it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let's let them finish this presentation, and then let's have the conversation on what do we want to do next so the next meeting can be more productive. I don't like anybody online anyways. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I just want to get through this before it hits 1 o'clock, so.
Yeah. Let's keep respectful of your time. We understand there are those two different expectations. We will be following that procedure. Information will be shared. Next meeting can be focused on receiving that feedback. If you all agree with that, and we all keep that respectful environment.
Before we move on, can we just see a show of hands of everybody that thought that we were here going to make suggestions for the contingency plan? The drought contingency plan? Okay. So it's about half, you're correct.
The email I got said conservation plan, updated the conversation, conservation plan.
Yeah, we have not used, we've always called this a water conservation committee, water conservation plan. We don't use the terms interchangeably.
One
Mild dyslexic,
one
sorry.
question relating to conservation. I feel that it's inherent upon this group to also address maintenance and upkeep of our existing facilities. The capacity of Lake Corpus Christi, for example, with the amount of silt sitting at the bottom. Admittedly, we don't have any rain now, so it's not an issue worthy of consideration. Leakage in the Mary Road pipeline, pump repairs that are required. These are issues that are really involve supply, existing supply. Is this part of the conservation plan?
So it's not, but I do want to comment on that because this is being public information. There are no, I have know of any leaks on the Mary Roads pipeline. So I'm saying that so the community doesn't get concerned. We need to be very careful about that.
Well, we did in fact have some pump problems. Is that not correct in the pipeline?
So we can talk about that, but yeah, last year, yeah, there's pump problems. Those get corrected and fixed, just like any other lift station pumps and wastewater pumps and things like that. I do want, and I'd love George to talk to you more about things later. And believe me, I can talk about the Mary Roads pipeline for days, and I will. But this is not I mean, we've got to focus on this conservation plan right now.
I understand.
Okay.
I think it's important to note, and thank you, Mr. McGill, for sending me a text, but one of the things is when the Texas Water Development Board looks at funding for projects, they look at this. And yes, this may seem like a check-the-box deal in a drawer, and it probably in reality is, but if we put some effort into this thing and put it on some scented paper, we might get some brownie points, right? So I think a good effort should be put towards this, but I also feel like that good effort could also provide more value if we were able to, provide some guidance on, because correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, a level 1 water emergency, it hasn't really been clearly defined of what that looks like, correct?
I think it's defined in the drought contingency plan.
It's clearly defined. It's clearly defined also on our dashboard right now when we're projected to hit that date. What
I'm saying, Esteban, is it's not like on day 9, everybody, this neighborhood has to shut off their water valve for a day, right? Like the mechanics of it.
The trigger is well-defined, the consequences are not. I've read the drought contingency plan, and it doesn't say who gets curtailed.
Yeah, I do want to ask, does the board want to talk about this, or do we want to talk about the water conservation plan?
Let's save this.
And we can have conversations afterwards, I'm not sure. I do have a meeting at 1 that I've got to get to.
I do have to say, in fairness, I think, Esteban, you were the one that actually emailed us, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, you did say we were, it was basically updating the water conservation plan. So I know that actually was in there very clearly. But I think for me personally, what I was confused about is I actually thought we were updating this so we could implement this immediately. And I guess that was the confusion for me.
Correct. Well, when the council implements it, whatever changes to the water conservation plan as goals and its targets will be implemented.
I think we can go back to clarify those expectations and clear those out in grading and send those out to the whole committee. All of those comments have been documented and will be addressed in a different time just to keep respectful use of your time. So if you all agree, we can move on with Esteban's presentation on the water conservation plan, and we might be able to advance afterwards, if you all agree. Okay.
So just to talk about the schedule and implementation of the plan will be once the committee has agreed on the targets and the programs that would go into the water conservation plan to meet those targets. We will then present to City Council with the updated document, the new water conservation plan. We will discuss what will be needed to implement said water conservation plan, and with support from the committee, I hope the City Council will then approve said plan. One of the things on the schedule too, we talked about a little while ago is trying to achieve around y'all's schedule how many meetings we want to set out. We had put a target of April, so then I can submit it to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality in May. But I will take the guidance and communication from the group, the committee, to make that achievable. And I really, this plan will be our plan, and that's my goals, talking about what a water conservation plan to educate the community on how they can conserve water, bring that demand down, so then we can look at future droughts or even current droughts once this is implemented, that we can achieve those targets. And the program set out from education, from monitoring, et cetera, what the group has, to try to achieve that, to assist the situation that we find ourselves in. Then, just to finish, the document has the appendices, and we include a lot of information in the water conservation plan, from the agreed order to rates to as important information necessary under the 288 water code that I need to submit this document under. With that, for myself and my team, I look forward to the conversations that we're going to have. I think this is going to be a good framework for our entire committee. This is going to be my second water conservation plan to develop. We had at committees in the past a water resource committee where we talked about what would go into a water conservation plan, what was about, and we sat around, breaking bread together and discussing what we see from our irrigators, our residents, our commercial users, what they can do in the sense of water conservation. Then after that will be the deliverables, and the goal will be again to submit to City Council as a deliverable a draft water conservation plan for their approval and therefore vote and public comment at that time at that City Council meeting. Projected timelines, we talked about it. I included in your packet kind of in-depth timeline. It's up to the committee. This was just a framework that I put together to try to get to an April goal, but if the committee, again, we come to a consensus earlier, more than happy to present to City Council when the committee feels they're ready, they have a strong conservation plan. And then with that,
With that, I know that the next item that you will had on mind, and please correct me, is you want to make a good, effective use of your time in the next meeting. So you will all have the materials to review, to take notes, and now I'd like to pass it over to you, Esteban, of what would be the best process for going out in the next meeting, review those comments, and going through the content. So just understand the logistics perspective, and then we can open up group discussion to see what do you think about it.
So I think that was a good suggestion from Gail. The committee set out what the next agenda should look like. So I kind of want to, open it for discussions on what you may want to hear.
I just have a question. So this is the 2020 plan. Have y'all redlined it at all? Have y'all made any updates?
Yes, I do have an updated plan, but I want to go through, present it to, my idea, it was just my idea, was to present it to the committee as a framework with red lines and what it would look like. And then also I sent this to you via email, and you can comment and provide comments back, and we can utilize that in a conversation at the next meeting as a framework to start developing the final draft.
Yeah. So would it be possible to go ahead and get the red line?
Sure.
Okay.
You have the updated numbers already, like water usage numbers?
The water usage numbers from 2025 will be included in the draft, the next draft, and then, yes.
I guess there's a couple of high volume users that aren't listed in this one, correct?
Yes.
They just have the top 5 in there.
It's the top, yes, it's the top 5 large volume users.
One thing that I noticed in reviewing this, and one thing that I've always stressed whenever I look at a city issue is, what are other cities doing that are faced with a similar issue to us? What are they doing that's worked, right? And one of the difficult things that we're faced with at the city of Corpus Christi and our metropolitan service area is that our numbers are incredibly different than the United States average when you're looking at gallons per capita per day, right? So for everybody, we're talking about all water usage, based on a metropolitan service area divided by that, how many gallons, and I'm not talking about what we're using at home and showering with and stuff like that. I'm talking about just gallons per capita per day. The United States average is about 82 gallons per, soul, right? City of Corpus Christi, we're trending somewhere around 230.
But did you say soul or?
Soul, like a person.
Okay, per person, really, it is 62 for this area.
So let me tell you how I arrived at my math, Esteban.
So.
Okay, so let's look at SAWS, San Antonio Water System, right? They're delivering anywhere from 230 to 250 million gallons per day to their customer base. That MSA is about 2.76 million people. That's 83.3 gallons per capita per day per individual across all rate classes, just using things as an average, right? And I got a point that I'm getting to at this. I know you're going to shoot holes in it, but I got a point that I'm getting to, right? So City of Corpus Christi, Nick, what are we delivering right now? About 105 a day?
Yeah, last time I looked at it, it was 108. I think it's less yesterday and today.
Right.
So
just
we'll say
call it-
105, Michael. I'm with you.
Call it
And
105.
Now
conservative
that's
numbers.
treated in raw water sales.
And the
right?
numbers that I quoted for SAWS is the same, right? I'm just talking about gallon of water, right? So here we're at 233 with an MSA of around 450,000. So what we do as individuals, as residents, as what we do within the confines of our home, right, has pretty minimal impact. It does have impact. Every drop counts. I'm 100% subscribed to that. But the shutting off the water whenever we're brushing our teeth or taking a 5-minute shower or shutting off using a shower head that cuts everything off. Andy's correct. We are heading into uncharted waters, right? And that's why I was excited whenever I saw the roster that was going to be on this committee, because there's some great minds in this room and some people that can really, kind of figure out how we can get to where we need to be to, I don't think that we're at a point to where we can avoid curtailment at this point, but how long we reduce the amount of time that we're in curtailment is of critical importance, I think, to everybody in this room, whether you're, industry or whether you're a resident. So I think, getting through this and updating this is incredibly important, and we need to do it, and we need to provide feedback and stuff like that. But there's some really tough work here to be done that you've got some really good horsepower on this committee to accomplish. And so I think, making recommendations to council that we use some of this time to provide insight on how the drought contingency plan could be updated or implemented as we approach curtailment would be very useful to them.
I'll give you an example of the number one most contentious issue that burns the house down operationally, politically, and everything else. If and when curtailment happens, is it across the board, across residential and industrial? Is it more on the industrial side? Who bears the brunt of curtailment? So, I mean, look, we've got people on every side of that issue, right? Somebody publicly is going to have to discuss that. And I at least feel that the expectation that's been put on me by some elements of city council is that open, honest, and discussion with all stakeholders, which we have represented across the industrial and natural and political spectrum, this is probably not a bad forum to have that mud wrestling match. And I know it's tough, but it's gonna happen somewhere at some point in time. It might as well happen here in the junior varsity league so that the varsity players kind of get a sense of how it's coming out and the arguments being made and what gets said. And I can't think of a more contentious issue, so I wanted to put that out there as the one that's the big enchilada.
I want to touch on something Mr. Miller said just a second ago, that one thing that we ought to be doing is looking at what other cities are doing that is working in terms of them conserving water. And so like one question that I have is what sort of recommendations this board can make to look at water rates, especially for our industrial classes, because I know that those are pretty set in stone. Those got to be like contractualized. And I understand the issue of conflating the drought contingency plan with this water conservation plan. However, I think it's going to be a little hard for us to talk about conservation in general without talking about the drought situation that we're currently in. More than that, to talk about rates, I think that we have, you said that we don't have any leaks in the Mary Roads pipeline, but I think that we have 100 million gallon a day leak in our water system in the fossil fuel industry. And they are primarily the drivers of this water crisis that we're in right now. And I just have looked, and I know that other people have looked at water rates in other towns, and we're pretty unique in the sense that our water rates are structured in a way that allows the fossil fuel industries to continue using so much of our water. And I understand that they're economic drivers in the region and that they bring us a lot of jobs, but they definitely have also brought us into a stage 3 drought. And so I think that we need to take a look at ways that we can start conserving from the top down, not just in drought, but over a long period of time, how we can reduce that sort of water usage.
Appreciate the comments. I think it's clear there is an interest in addressing that issue. I think that there is also a question here to be answered, whether, number one, clarifying in that detail the level of the scope of the water conservation plan, what is in, what is not in, make that clear, and for those items that are not included, to answer if those could be addressed in some other space or within this same space. Just to try to organize here some thoughts.
If I could, real quick, to Jake's deal, you're talking about rates, and there is rates in the conservation plan. Do you feel that they don't have a high enough rate, or?
I feel that they need to be reevaluated because, and I think that my idea for it does sort of fall more under the drought contingency plan purview. Because yes, I do think that the rates could be higher at a little more equitable to match what is closer to residential rates. I understand that they pay or that they're consuming at a much higher volume, and so that that tracks. That makes sense to me.
Do you feel if their rate was higher, they would use less water? Because I don't feel that way.
I feel that it would incentivize them to conserve more.
I mean, I personally feel like they've done everything they can, or continuing to do everything they can to conserve the water, because they don't want to be curtailed either. And, you know, I don't want them to always be the bad guy, right? Because they've done
Totally.
a lot for this town, that's all I want to say.
Totally, and I understand they might have even done that, taken lots of measures to curtail their water. One interesting thing that was said to me a while back when I was talking to somebody about industry curtailment is that they all have like set operational water needs, right? And that they cannot operate without a certain baseline of water a day. And I think that that's concerning because that kind of paints us into a corner of how much we are required to provide them with. And I mean, it's sort of, to me, serves as like an issue of mismanagement in the past to, you know, bring in all these large volume water accounts without the necessary resources to continue to provide that, which is again why I think that we do a little bit have to talk about the drought contingency plan.
So,
To that point, I think it's also important to understand from CC Water's perspective that, and I want to preface this with, I know there's a lot of opinions in here about industry. Some of us would just assume industry go away and never come back, right? Some of us would understand that industry is the #1 economic driver of this area. And some of us, you know, are realists, right? I fall into that realist category. And back to the numbers that I was talking about, we are in a very unique situation. It would be very good, because I could not personally find another community where it's this far off. 177 gallons per day per capita in San Diego is the highest that I could find, and we're over 230. So that creates a situation where, especially when you get to a point where a lot of the more conventional water sources are less available, like groundwater, like surface water, that kind of thing, you know, all of that stuff's been kind of spent up. So we have to make huge investments to continue to provide for the customers that we have, and we have to make huge investments to provide for that growth. And one thing, in my personal opinion, of how we got to this situation is we brought on some big customers without increasing the supply at the time we brought them on. Because like Esteban and Nick said, the lakes were full, people aren't talking about water, water's expensive. But whenever we go out and bring in a new customer, we can't take for granted that, yeah, we can service you right now, but we don't have a solid plan in place to service you if we go into another drought. And so right now we're kind of in a panic situation. So, so there's a little bit of both. And I think that this community, or this committee, because of, there's a lot of different viewpoints in here, and we've got good moderators like Karen and stuff like that that can kind of keep us in line, I think we could provide a really valuable work product to this council, because I know if I was the mayor, or if I was a city council person, or if I was the city manager, I'd be pretty nervous right now about what stage 4 looks like in practice. And if I could say, hey, those guys figured all this stuff out for us, it'd make my life a lot easier politically. But
so to those
my
points,
2 cents.
Those are great inputs from the committee. The task that can be helped in the document itself, and when we go through it, that's the educational part of the water conservation plan that needs to be, that you could help to promote. You could help to make sure that every citizen, every industry, every business understands where their water comes from, how do they use their water, how they conserve, because we say it and everybody talks about it and it kind of gets tiring. Every drop counts. Well, yes, every drop counts in the good times and in bad, for the environment, for your resident, for economic growth in the community. It always counts. And so the document that I'm going to refer us back to, try to bring us back to, sets out and helps set those programs to achieve what everybody here has been talking about. And so I'm excited to hear more of the conversation of how we can strengthen those key goals, set the goals, strengthen the communication, promotion, whatever adjective words you want to use to get those words out, to your point, Mr. Miller, so that we can make sure that everybody is aware where their water comes from, how is it being used, and how we can move forward. So thank you.
So to move this thing forward, just so it meets everybody's needs, let's try and plan what the process and deliverable is going to be for the next meeting.
I want to kind of chime in on that. So we have a schedule that you provided, and I think right now, as a committee, if we can look at that and get a whole. So if everybody's good with the schedule, we've got 4 meetings, right? We're at the first one today, second one will be on the 13th of February, third one on the 27th, potentially a fourth one. What I would like to see, just so we can get past, kind of some of the conversation we've had, is ultimately, if this schedule is good, then we vote on that if it needs to be a vote. That way you guys send out your invitations, whatnot, but that you send the updated version and we just focus on the first task at hand, which is this book right here, getting it to the most updated version and how that can trickle down into a larger conversation then we can look at potentially at the next meeting. But I think the next meeting, we need to focus on exactly why we're here. Regardless if we, want to be here for something else or more, right, is get this done. So we talked about if you already have a red line version, you just start a big email chain with all of us in it, you send it out. We can chime in during that time frame before the next meeting. You've already put a shot clock of 2 weeks to get the comments back. So by the time we come at the next meeting, everybody's got your red lines, potentially other people's questions, concerns, or comments, and have a document that at that point we can say, here's what we like, here's what we don't like, and just move through each one of those red line formats. Because we've done this in the UDC, the IDM, it's the same thing. You go through it, you update it to fit our mold of city, right, or how we see it, and then how does this document then lead us maybe to a drought contingency plan or a larger conversation on how this committee can potentially help the city council, since most of us were put on here by city council on water-related concerns. That's the way I would move it forward, just so we have at least something, because we said in 20 minutes left, we want to talk about the next meeting and what we want to have. I think we all have concerns about this, that, and the other, but we need to just finish this first. And that, you already have it, you're a step ahead of us, you already have a version that we can dissect, and that's, I think, a better version of how we've done it with other committees that I've been on. The second thing I'll add on is just to keep, some level of sanity on the committee, right? Do we need a chair and a vice chair just to keep what's on the agenda and the conversation moving forward? Because the one thing I wanted to see is we knock this out in those 4 meetings and this doesn't become, a water emergency meeting, so.
Yeah, if I can comment on that, I was involved previously with the SEAC committee, as some of the people here were as well. If the committee is interested in a chair and vice chair, I think we'd be very supportive of it. I go back to my comment at the beginning. I'm happy to answer any and all questions, but these meetings are meant for you to discuss and us to listen. And certainly before and after the meetings, I can answer a lot of questions and will do so. But anyway, I think that's a great motion if the group is supportive of that.
Yeah, I just saw it lead to a lot more meaningful conversation. You're on that committee with me. At the end of the day, just so we can get through at least a presentation and then give everybody the time and kind of the format to why we're here. At the end of the day, it's for water conservation, which ultimately does lead to drought contingency plans or conversations about water usage, loss, everything in between, because you can conserve in 9,000 different ways, right? So I think my motion would be is that as a group, we approve the timeline that they've set forward, and ultimately, if we want to vote for a chair and a vice chair, and that the next meeting's agenda be solely discussion and review of the water conservation plan and go through that so we can just knock that out, at least by the next meeting, so.
And I'd like to add to that, Moses, that we, as a committee, and then also staff, if you want to engage in this as well, accept my challenge of kind of looking for and seeking out, other communities that have, a similar situation to where we can take a look at their drought contingency plans and do some independent research.
Well, I think once he sends his red line, that's the first question you should ask in the email is saying, because they're here to, during this 2-week commenting, if we have a question, we're all in that big group, we all can see the answer. I mean, we did it with the same thing with the impact fee committee. There's 30 people on that email chain, and when there's a question asked, everybody gets that answer. So by the time you get to that next meeting, whatever questions you have, per capita, costs, rates, that can be looked at. But I think we need to just first look through this document and get this thing identified, corrected, modified, whatever word you want to use, and then how that can branch off. But I would do that in the interest of time.
So there were a few decision points that I'd like to clarify. One was to approve the timeline.
Yeah.
Second, the proposal for having a chair and vice chair. Was there a third one?
Third one was to the next agenda item to be solely review of the red lines.
Okay. So.
And then obviously the last 20 minutes is
Yep.
set the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay. So would you like to go through a voting process for these 3 points that has been proposed? Yeah?
So I'd like to amend that we keep the CCW as the chair through the conservation, and then we can reconsider once we've moved forward of changing the chair.
I agree with that because, I don't know that we really need a chair for water conservation. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go one by one. The first one is the approval of the timeline. So would you like to raise your hands if you'd like to approve the timeline that was proposed?
My only issue is I know I will be out of town for the next meeting on February 13th. So I don't know if we have any flexibility on dates. But I definitely would, or the ability to attend virtually.
You're able to watch virtually right now.
You can watch, but I have to run my mouth.
Mike, we are working on that. So we had a similar question from one of the committee members yesterday. So we're going to work with our IT group to see if we can get a WebEx or Teams.
You can always
link.
call in, I'll put you on speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll work with you to figure something out.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well then,
So-
I'm an aye.
To go back, are you okay with, I guess the committee's okay with having still on the 13th?
Everybody's going to have a date they can attend to. If we sit here and say this date work, I've done this also with the impact fee committee, and there's always going to be one person. So if you have the online presence for at least viewing purposes, that's one thing. If you want to make a comment, somebody in here can log in, somebody on the phone, as long as it's not illegal to have them on the committee. So at the time, we just log them in as virtual presence allowed.
Okay, so we will have to check on the IT capabilities and confirm that, if that's okay.
But literally, I can call Moses and he will answer and put me on speaker and.
WebEx, let's try it for
Yeah.
WebEx. If we get it, we get it. If
Okay.
not, we'll just do something
Okay.
else.
We will own that point, okay. So I just want to confirm, I saw all of the hands raised for the approval of the timeline, considering that we have to check on the WebEx capabilities. Okay, so that has been approved. The next one is the proposal to have a chair and vice chairs, and the motion to have CCW as chair. I just want to pass that question. I don't know if that's possible.
Well, I think the discussion there is, if you're going to be the chair, then ultimately you need to stop us so that you can do what is on the agenda presentation as a chair and not as CC staff.
Okay, so.
No, I'm just saying.
I think we're all on the same page now. We've already kind of hashed that out, so we understand what we're here for, so,
Okay.
Yeah, it should
Would you
be
like to
clear.
vote on that? The motion would be to have CCW as chair.
So just the chair through the conservation portion.
Okay. With that note.
Well,
And
just
you
to-
already are,
but
so
just to-
why don't we just wait until we're through with the
Yeah.
conservation?
Well, discussion there is going to be that this is ultimately, unless city council changes the name, it's always going to be called the Conservation Committee. This is the conservation plan that we're updating, but where this committee leads or the conversations lead into can just be open discussion, formally, informally, but there's no guarantee they're going to come back to us and say, let's update the drought contingency plan that was just updated 2 years ago that's not up for being updated. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, our scope is the water conservation plan. Then we have other ideas.
That's the only reason I was saying, I was going off of the chair and vice chair being somebody on the committee, because then they have more conversation with staff about setting the agenda. If you-
I would vote for the status quo. I think Stephen did a great job.
Yeah.
We've got done what we need to get done. I don't think we're ever going to get the license to update the drought contingency plan. I just think this discussion in its own right and whatever informal results come from that are valuable. So I'm not trying to push to update the drought contingency plan. I'm looking for a hearing of very contentious issues that I think deserve some debate.
I don't think we need to set anybody as a chair. I think we just move forward now that everybody knows what the goal is.
You have permission to lead us.
Would the rest of the group agree to that latest update with
The water conservation plan.
Laura Cummins?
I think we're good. I think it's important that whenever this does get developed, though, and it does get presented to council in a meaningful way, I think that we should probably have somebody from this committee present it to council, and so that way it expresses to the community that, yes, we did meet, yes, we did have these discussions, and no, we're not a staff member.
Well,
So-
everybody loves you, Michael, you can do it.
Thank you, Moses. I thought they loved you. Oh, no, they don't.
I just want to confirm your agreement, because there has been several developments of this proposal. So the proposal is to continue without having a chair and vice chair.
Yeah, I'll just,
Continue through the
I'll
timeline?
just take off my motion and we just stick to what we have. It's
Okay.
simpler that way.
And the third bullet is that for next meeting, focus on the review of the document with the red lines. Okay? Are we good? Okay.
So I would like to encourage the city to look at two cities, El Paso and Petaluma, California, have great conservation plans.
Hey, Steve, what do you think you're
Could you
gonna
say those
have?
one more time? Could you say those cities one more time?
Yeah, El Paso and Petaluma, California.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, when do you think you're gonna have the draft ready to hit send and get it out to us?
Okay, so we have been working before this committee was ever thought about from council. I still had to, as the water resource manager, take a water conservation plan to council. So I've already been in the process of looking at El Paso. We worked with a consultant plumber to help us assist us on updating the water conservation plan. And one of the cities was actually El Paso. We looked at Saws, we looked at Houston, we've looked at Dallas-Fort Worth, utilizing, and some of the people working with plumber came from those organizations, Saws, and larger utilities that worked in their water conservation. They have big utilities, they have big personnel, and so they had the expertise and to assist my team on developing an updated water conservation plan. So what I'm gonna present to y'all, I'll send y'all a draft, and it's just draft, so if you don't like how it looks or you want things changed or whatnot, this is the conversation for the next meeting, perfect. And I'll email that to y'all, and that will be the starting point. It's not as perfect as a as a red line version, so I just want to be clear on that, because it looks different, it's more updated, because if you do research on other cities, on the water conservation plans, and they have it looks more educational. It's inviting. And those are some of the key points, so that it could be used, so you'll see that, so FYI on that.
So Esteban, the question was, when will you actually send it out?
I will send it out later today.
Hey, Stephen, in that draft, is it still the recommendation that desalination is the only recommended?
No, we've
modified
modified,
that part?
yes, we've modified,
To what? Just
off
out
the
of
top,
curiosity.
I think we just said alternative supplies.
Okay. We can change it back, though.
You can,
if we deem,
you
correct?
can suggest, yes. It's- So, answers.
Okay, well. Would, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Have a great
Thank you very
weekend,
much.
everybody.